Live from 1871 in the heart of downtown Chicago, you're listening to Chicago Stories, a weekly podcast featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans, as told to Mayor Emanuel.
I'm beginning to like being introduced to my own podcast. Usually we just sit in my office.
Classy.
I'm going to have to start doing that. Now I just want some flags and music before I sit down, okay? Yeah, and the whole effort. So Howard, this is my podcast, so I just want to set the ground rules, okay? I know that comes... It's mine, okay? I know you're the eldest, but I'm a middle child,
right,
okay?
All right, that's
it's
okay.
Mayor Emanuel's Chicago Stories.
Got it.
Small print, also Howard Tullman's podcast, okay? I know we're on the 4-year anniversary, and you just said, of 1871.
Of me, 5 years on 1871.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna work on sharing this. Okay. This is not, you have a lot of sharing time to work on as a child. Okay, on the Chicago Stories, and it's about people. The genesis of this was people I was meeting all along the way as mayor. That I keep saying at family dinner, that are really fascinating people that I just wish other people could say rather than them introduce me at a press conference. I think people will be interested in their story. And you and I, though, let's be fair to everybody, known each other for years.
Decades.
I was keeping it years, but okay, decades, okay. In the span of human history, it's just a blink of an eye. How's that?
Okay, good.
Okay, but on a serious note, let me ask you, since you were trained as a criminal defense attorney, what's your trajectory from a criminal defense attorney to entrepreneur? It's not a trick question.
No,
okay.
So I was a trial lawyer for about 10 years, and in the course of those 10 years, the computer really came into existence as a business tool. And at the end of the 10 years, it was more interesting to me to manage the information using the computers than it was to continue to be a trial lawyer. So I retired in 1980 and started the first of a series of database and information-based computer businesses.
So you've seen the trajectory of Chicago change tremendously. What was like the one idea that you thought you saw that was that's going to be a hit, that is it, but did not turn out, and what did you learn from that?
I think that there was never a specific idea that I fell in love with and thought that was going to be the be-all and end-all. Everybody was excited about Groupon as an example. That's more recent. And I think that, we're in the third or fourth iteration of what's going on with Groupon, but we thought it was going to be earth-shaking and world-changing, and that hasn't happened so far.
But you also are famous for a phrase that not everything you start, you have to finish.
For sure, that's my life story.
Right. Well, that you should pay a therapist for. I'm here just as the mayor, okay? Blue Cross and Blue Shield will cover that for you, okay?
All right,
but on a serious note, what do you mean by that? And then I have a follow-up on that.
Well, so here at 1871, the success rate of startups is maybe 3 out of 10.
Right.
And so one of the biggest issues for a startup is opportunity cost. And what that means is sometimes your baby is ugly. And, you have to sit and be very frank with people about what's working and what's not working. And sometimes, it's very hard for them to go home and tell their family and tell their investors and everybody else that they're going to have to change directions or do something different. So that's this idea that sticking to it beyond a certain point is not really the smartest thing or the best thing to do.
Not every time I do a commencement, but I do believe it for my life, and I think it's true, not just for my life, but when I do speak to high school and college graduations, I always say that the biggest thing you're going to learn in life is when you fail, not when you succeed. What was the one failure that gave you think you took the most out of and has been a kind of a North Star for you?
It's always been haircuts.
Okay, I'm going to leave that aside.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to also leave that to the person that's covered by Bluegrass. That is your only failure? Because I would actually say tucking your shirt in was a big problem you have.
Entrepreneurs do not look backwards. We call this in-game amnesia. If you're focused on what happened in the past, a shot you missed or an opportunity that you missed, you're not paying attention to going ahead. And so My focus has always been what's next.
Really, you don't think that failure is a life learning experience?
I think that learning is a life learning experience. I think failure sucks.
Well, I didn't say it didn't suck. I mean, but I think I've learned more about myself.
Well, I can understand that.
No. Well, that's okay. I mean, it's interesting because I think a lot of people learn, Howard, from failure. You're saying that's a mistake to do is to use. I got to be honest, I disagree with you. I think actually one of the most important things for knowing how to move in life is knowing how to pick yourself up on a failure and get the right foot in front of the left foot, and you learn more from that. But you're saying that's not what you do.
No, we call that failing forward, which means that you take the good lessons and the bad lessons and you apply them.
You just got to spin it.
You apply them,
okay.
right?
Okay.
But, look, everybody is not going to be successful at everything they do. The biggest thing is to decide, if you're digging a hole, when to stop digging and when to do something else. And that's really important in the startup world.
Why did you decide to come to 1871 versus you were just, I think, done with Tribeca around that time? So 1871, I mean, when I, as the mayor, sat down with a number of people and said, okay, we got to build an innovation space. This was going to be the flagship. We didn't have any in the city. I know we're on the heels of 1871 being recognized now as the best in the world. I don't think we all thought that back in 2012 or 2013 we could build something that quick and that recognizable. But why did you, given that you could start up another company, move on to another kind of startup and take something from inception all the way to kind of maturity, why did you decide to do this?
Well, I think that we thought, that this was a very important initiative for the city. And the first year was a design that had to do with the community, building the community, getting sponsors and getting donors and everything else. But the model was not a business model. And so what was particularly attractive was to come in and to put together a team and to turn this place into some place that depended not on the goodwill of Good Samaritans or on charity or on money from the city or the state, but depended on business purposes and providing value to everybody and making it into something that was sustainable over the long haul. And that's been the model that has been sort of most recognized. A lot of places have co-working spaces. A lot of places rent desks. That's really not what we do here. We really are engaged in an engine for economic development, for matchmaking, for, you're not going to move the needle in a city by building startups. You're going to use and move the needle when those startups, technology and disruptive innovations are adopted by large corporations. And that really is where the impact occurs. And so seeing some of our startups in the city changing the way that an Allstate or a State Farm does business, changing the way that Standard Parking handles their digital applications with Spot Hero or with Snapsheet, or seeing what's going on. That's what's really exciting, and that's what's going to put and has put Chicago on the global map as a tech center.
Why do you think Chicago has a sense of community that other cities do not have? And it doesn't just apply, obviously, in the tech scene. It applies in the theater scene. It applies in the culinary scene. It applies in the cultural scene. What makes this unique when we say a community that has some authenticity to the comment?
I think we just have a longer perspective. When I was a lawyer, you could shake hands with anybody in the city of Chicago, and that was their bond and their word. You better get it in writing if you were in New York. That's all I can tell you. On the West Coast, people are employed at businesses, but they have one foot out the door almost, from the day they arrive. This is a different kind of workforce. It's a different kind of place. We added to the 1871 application process when we got here another line, and it said, how do you intend in your business to make a difference? Not make money, not make a living, but make a life and make a difference. And that's all part of this idea, to be and to resemble the entire city, to be diverse, to be inclusive, to look like the city as a whole, and to share what's going on here with the rest of the city.
See, I think there's a seminal moment, the fire.
Sure.
Which the city, on its bottom knee, literally on its knees, has to come together to build. And then I think we are the cultural and financial capital of the Midwest, and the Midwest work ethic is unique, and it's
It absolutely
camaraderie.
is.
And I actually think it's one of the most powerful tools we have economically as a city?
Well, I think everybody understands that the cost of attracting employees is substantial, but the cost and the challenges of retaining them is even more important, and having a loyal workforce. And, we see it upstairs here. In our environment, the venture capital guys work together. They might, 3 and 4 of them might invest in a new business opportunity together. That would never happen on either of the coast where they're highly competitive. Here, it's a much more collaborative environment. It's much more of a place where everybody sort of lends a hand backwards and forwards in terms of bringing people forward.
When we went for the international recognition, what were some of the statistics you cited about why 1870 warranted being the best?
Well, one of them was how it's changed the central business district in the city. I mean, in the 5.5 years of 1871, 9 million square feet of space in the central business district is now technology businesses. In that same period of time, we created about 165,000 jobs. Technology has gone from about 2% of the Chicago economy, maybe 13 or 14%. You would know better than me, but that impact is in 5 years is staggering. But also, 1871 was recognized as a whole ecosystem, having the universities, huge component, having schools, having venture firms, having 800 entrepreneur mentors, having 1,000 events a year. All of that really is part of what you're building when you're building a whole ecosystem.
See, I think, so in the last 5 years, Chicago's been the #1 city for corporate relocations in the United States every year for 5 years in a row. And for 5 years in a row, Chicago has been the #1 city for direct foreign investment. And we don't take any hot money from Latin America, Russia, other places around the world. And for 6 years in a row, Chicago's economy has grown faster than the United States as a whole, or New York and D.C. And parallel, we are the most diverse economy, but 6 years ago or 5 years ago, technology wasn't a player, and it's now grown the fastest in the sense of employment in the city.
Yeah, and also this is the best place in the United States for a woman to start a business.
Yes.
So this is a huge thing too. We have, in the last year, worked really hard to have parity among our male and female mentors. It was a huge challenge, and one of the things I think is we decided that buying another 500 pizzas really didn't matter to Domino's very much. So we spend our money buying from locally owned and operated minority businesses as part of our Shy Buys program. And the idea is that that's how you put your money where your mouth is, and it really matters. It doesn't matter to these big corporations, but it matters to these local companies. And then the best part about that has been to introduce them to our corporate partners and have them then have an opportunity to work with these large corporations as well.
Paint a picture, you think, if we stay smart and strategic 5 years down the road, where Chicago will be in the global scene, and what do we have to do, knowing that we only fail forward, according to you, but never look back and learn any lessons? I had to get that.
Was that a joke? Or?
No, it was actually a cutting insult. I wanted you to see it for. I wanted you to hear.
It's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah. Maybe you should get a haircut so you can hear it.
It's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, I just waited at your age for you to learn how to tuck a shirt in. I was thinking of doing the entire interview with my shirt out. Go ahead.
I dare you.
Okay. Well, I won't do it because I'm respectful
to
everybody else.
What was your insult question?
No.
I
was trying to figure out how do you think the next 5 years. What are the opportunities for Chicago? What are the pitfalls to be avoided in specifically the tech space?
Well, we have to keep providing the new resources to our companies. So when we started, digital was a big deal. When we started, that was the core underlying idea that mobile was going to change the world in digital. Today, everything is digital. Every business is tech-enabled. So what's the next set of hurdles? It could be, and we're building in blockchain, we're building in augmented reality, we're building in machine learning, we're building in the Internet of Things. Downstairs on the 5th floor, we have the Connectory, which is 25,000 square feet in a partnership with Bosch. Right next to it, we have a new thing called Relish Works, which is a 10,000 square foot partnership with Gordon Food Service on supply chain logistics. Our job is to keep raising the bar. It's we believe in iteration and in getting better all the time, and it's a race. And if we don't keep upping our game, then we won't be successful in 5 years.
We as a city have to make our diversity of economy, our diversity of people, work for us rather than against us. And I think that's a key aspect. And two is make sure that the universities continually and high schools are intimately involved in that innovation and in creating not only the intellectual talent, but the kind of creative force behind, I think, the tech scene.
Yeah, well, and as you know, we have a program with the Diet High School, Beulah
Right.
is here, where we're teaching 9th and 10th graders entrepreneurship and coding and things like that. And the intention is exactly that, to start early, to put them on the right path, to show them a different kind of future, and that they can do it, and to have them take ownership of that kind of stuff.
So we agree. Let's take some questions from the audience.
Real talk, is Hyperloop going to happen in Chicago?
So much for the interview with you. They're really interested in you. So I got to be careful because we're out in a bidding process. So I really want to answer your question without getting legal trouble. I will just say, if this is the 50-yard line, I'm on this side of the 50-yard line from an optimistic standpoint. We have real proposals and bids that are in, and I think we're closer than we've ever been. So I think but I think let me say this, because tomorrow is a very important vote as it relates to the airport. We're about to embark on one of the biggest transformations, not only O'Hare, but Chicago O'Hare will be the gold standard for connectivity in the United States of America. And it will be internationally at a star. We'll be the only city with a global terminal where you will go from international to domestic without your Fitbit. You'll have an incredible runway system. We're doubling the size of the terminal space. And being able then to get from airport to downtown 20 minutes or less, and you put those two economic engines together, it's a game changer for the city of Chicago. And not just for the city, it's a foundational piece that will project out 50 years from now.
Cool. Well, we feel that all the time, because when people are able to come into the city from either coast and basically have a full day's business and then leave if they need to. I mean, that's the nature of these economies today, because people need to get across the globe, really, but specifically across the country. So
let's
the
go to one more,
question,
because I had one more of you, but go ahead, or a couple more of you, but.
The next question is about blockchain, which says blockchain startups are going to face a very difficult regulatory environment. What's the city's activity going to be to help or prevent these startups from calling Chicago home?
This is unusual for an elected official. I have no idea. I got to be honest, I'm trying to read and grab everything I can on the industry, the space. I've talked to 3 or 4 quote-unquote experts. I don't know enough yet to be informed, to give you an informed opinion. I don't think, generally, in a knee-jerk reaction, I don't want to block anything. I'm not sure what it will do, and I'm not in the position yet for the city or the mayor to sit there and say, here's what we're going to do, except for you can't hold back the future.
Well, that's actually a smart answer, because the truth is...
That, in 20 years of friendship, is the first time. Do you have that on film? That's very important.
It's a smart answer, because it's an enabling technology. It's not something that you're going to regulate anytime soon anyway.
We don't know. So let me actually, you could have done, here's what Howard and I have a good friendship, and everybody should know that, but here's what I think you could have done anything. You chose to, as an entrepreneur that was successful, to give back. You could have done anything while you're serving 1871, and you chose to bring the culture of entrepreneurship to Diet High School on the South Side. And I think part of the Jewish culture is tzedakah, which for those who are not Jewish is about giving and giving back. What in your upbringing, besides obviously being born Jewish, and you have a family of entrepreneurs, what drove you to... A lot of people, when they think about it and they're successful, they would like to go give lectures. You like to go give back, and in all the teasing you and I do back and forth, I admire your decision to spend your time helping others. Where is it from your own family background, your Jewish faith? Where do you think that?
I think I think that
that value system was nurtured?
I think that comes from my mother. I think that was just part of the everyday environment. You know, I'm one of 6 kids. I'm the oldest. You know, we look down on middle children.
You should hear what we think about the older.
Okay, right. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe
I
it.
used to say
I know
to my,
him.
I used to say to my
the
mother,
elder.
"You love Ezekiel more than you love me." She goes, "No, I hate you all equally." It explains everything you need to know about an Emanuel child, just that one comment.
I think that my mother was an astonishing example, and she did a lot of caring beyond our family. And I think that this is just part of the job. I mean, and by the way, part of the job.
Why is it that other entrepreneurs don't see it the same way?
Well, I mean, I think
They're putting seed capital in a company. You're giving them intellectual capital. That's a different thing.
Well, that's, you know, when you ask about the success of 1871, it's because we're deeply committed to being a learning organization, and I think that that's part of my job, is to teach and to share, and that is part of obviously it's part of the Jewish culture, but it's part of every culture. I mean, you know, we want people to grow in their jobs. We want them to be challenged, and, you know, anybody can make a job boring, but, you know, our job here is to make every job special and unique, and to understand that it takes all kinds of people to be successful. You know, they come in tremendous amount of different packages. You know, some of them don't believe that bathing is necessarily a daily ritual. Some of them like to work all night. You have to make room in any organization that's going to be successful for a lot of different talents and a lot of different people.
Let me, if you don't know this, and this is not only for you but for everybody, there's a tradition among elected officials who are chief executives, which is when you leave a note in the door, rather in the drawer. Presidents do that for incoming. I've had my note for my predecessor. What does Howard's note say to Betsy when she, now that's a private thing, but if you, at 10,000 feet, if you could, and I don't know if that tradition exists, but when I walked in the office and I opened the door to my desk, there was a note from Mayor Daley. That was true for George Bush to Barack Obama, and it was true for Barack Obama to Donald Trump. What's Howard Tullman, not that you're an elected official, God forbid,
right,
or chief executive, right, really God forbid, but what would be your note in the drawer that you leave Betsy?
Well, so we've been meeting, you know, on a regular basis, and it's an ongoing conversation. It's not, you know, it's not a single thought or whatever. But I mean, I think that, you know, what we want to do is to do everything we can to set her up for success, and that's really what I said to her, which was, I'm as deeply invested in her success as she is, and we want to do everything to make sure that going forward, 1871 is even more successful than it's been to date. And that's really been the principal thing. And also, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do is take on some of the hard questions and conversations before she gets here, so that she doesn't have to start out with a lot of house, you know, projects and things like that that are difficult.
Okay. We have a fast round here in Chicago.
Okay.
Stories. Do you have any other questions before we do that?
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay, go ahead, quick.
How do you see Chicago's chances in Amazon?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Okay.
Here's what, very simple. It's not very simple, but I think there's 2 tiers in the 20 remaining. That's number 1. And there's some that I don't think, while they're on the list, are fully a global city for a worldwide headquarters of a major tech company. I don't want to name them, that's not fair. I think there are other cities that have, because of certain things going on in social, political, cultural areas, have started to disqualify themselves. I think if you're a tech company, it's very hard to be in a city that doesn't embrace a certain set of values that you have. I think in the end of the day, the city that's not on the list that is a contrasting city, a competitive city, is Seattle. And the reason I say that is nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, let's get a second headquarters. Yeah, let's do this again, because it has its own challenges. And so what's driving them to leave Seattle? Or what's driving them to think we can't do what we need to do here? They have, at any given time, 6,000 to 8,000 openings. They can't fill them. And so what city on day one can provide 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 jobs like that across a company that's merging and going into healthcare, going into banking, financial, more than just distribution and logistics? There is a housing challenge in Seattle. What city can provide an answer? They want to pay employees that can walk to work or be close to work without having to be an hour and a half to work. So when you think about it, their benchmark isn't this city versus that city. It's this city versus what they think is falling short or not adequately met in Seattle. And I think Chicago, when you look at the RFP and you look at aviation, you look at transportation, you look at affordability, you look at neighborhoods that have it all, you look at cultural life, you look at universities, we are a very competitive city. There's always, look, I just told you 5 years in a row, Chicago's the #1 city for corporate relocations. There is always this cultural element that doesn't come down to data, but it comes down to my spouse or my partner went to school here, has family here, things that you can't measure when it comes down to 2 or 3 cities. But I think that's how I position Chicago, and I think we're competitive purely on the numbers. And I really do believe what we first started talking about. You cannot replicate the Midwest work ethic. In the tech world, it takes a lot to hire somebody. You got to look through 3 resumes, and the problem is everybody leaves within 3 weeks. We have an incredibly loyal, dedicated workforce, highly educated, highly motivated, and an affordable city.
And talk about the universities too.
Well, I've said. They know that. We have. So Chicago has more universities than any other city in the United States, but Boston. And if you drew a 150, 200-mile radius around Chicago, we have more level 1 universities than any other city in the world. Full stop. Every year, 150,000 freshly minted 4-year degrees land in the city of Chicago. Do not get on the highway between Madison, Wisconsin, and Chicago. You will be roadkill on graduation day. Ann Arbor, roadkill. Bloomington, roadkill. We have more graduates of some of the Big Ten than the cities in which the universities themselves are placed. And so those are real strengths. Redfin, when they came out, 25 neighborhoods that had it all. Affordable housing, good school, good transportation, good safety. What one city had multiple listings? We had 6 of the top 10, 7 of the top 25 neighborhoods in the United States of America. A lot of strengths, and then the aviation system, the public transportation system, #1 biking city. So we have strengths. We have challenges. There's other cities that have strengths, but I like our strengths.
Okay. Talking about bikes, what are we going to do about dockless bikes?
Really?
The rest of the questions are about me, so I know you don't want to get into those things.
Actually, if they're embarrassing, I do. Right now, our bike program, both protected bike lanes, our bike sharing program, are all working. I know others. I've went and talked to companies that have a different type of bike system. I think given everything I've heard from other people that use the roads, whether it's cars, et cetera, and sidewalks, I'm happy where we are right now. I want to keep building what we have. I'm not sure I want to venture off to another space in the bike world.
Okay. You have questions?
I have a rapid round here.
All right, good.
You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, this is a round for Chicago. Chicago stories. Thick or thin pizza?
Thick.
Lake, river?
Lake.
Hancock or Sears? Hancock or Sears?
Don't they have new names?
Yeah, but we're not doing it. This is you now show you either forget them, man. You either show that you got roots or you don't. Okay.
Hancock.
Okay. Cubs socks.
Cubs.
Do 16-inch, 12-inch.
16-inch.
There it is. You passed you've got 4 out of 5. Okay.
All right,
you show for a kid from New Jersey, you really feel your roots here in Chicago.
I think of myself as a kid from St. Louis. But,
do you really?
Yeah. That's
well,
where
you
I was
work
born.
on that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
We're with Howard Tullman, Chicago Stories, a great entrepreneur who I think carries the ethic of not just building things but giving back. Howard, thank you for making Chicago home.
You've been listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using hashtag ShyStories. Thanks for listening.